In this video we'll talk about TRT and fertility.
Welcome to this channel. I am Dr. Steven de Vos, the lifting dermatologist, and this is my partner Danny Bossa. If you want to learn more about the most cutting-edge science-based information in the world of hormone optimization, please like and subscribe. I also invite you to join my other YouTube channel, The Lifting Dermatologist. The link you can find in the description of this video.
Welcome back, Danny. Today we're talking about TRT and fertility. We got a lot of questions in our Facebook group as in the comment section of this YouTube channel, always asking, do I need extras when I more TRT? So what's your take on that?
Okay, so huge concern with a lot of you guys. Maybe you had symptoms of low T. You want to feel better. You're considering starting testosterone replacement therapy. Maybe you're already on it, and then it gets to the point that, well, I want to have kids in 5 years or 10 years, or I want to have kids next year. Or, do I have to stop my TRT, or do I need to take something else, and so on and so forth. So basically what happens when you are taking testosterone replacement therapy is naturally there is a signal being sent. I'm going to say this, obviously my explanations are always in very simple English. I don't go into a ton of technical detail, and that's kind of the whole point of this channel. But there's a signal that is sent from the brain to the testicles that regulate how much testosterone is being produced or how much sperm is being produced, and all these different factors. There's an open line of communication that happens. So you got to think of it kind of like a barometer, or think of it like a thermostat. If I set my temperature to 22 degrees in my house, well, if it hits 24, there's nothing's going to happen, because there's already enough heat, right? So the heat starts to drop, and as soon as it falls below 22 and hits 21, the signal is sent to say, hey, we need some heat, and the heat comes up and it tries to keep it at 22. So that's kind of the analogy you can use for the way the communication happens between the brain, the pituitary, and the testicles, as to how it regulates a lot of these hormones and so forth. So what happens is, when you start replacement therapy, you're introducing an external source of testosterone into your body. So what happens is, let's just assume that, I'll just use the heat analogy just because I got that in my mind right now. But if I was to have, an external source of heat just blowing heat into my house, the thermostat would just be sitting there saying, well, I don't need to make any heat. I don't need to send the signal to make heat. It's plenty hot always in the house. I need to turn on. It's kind of the same with the body. So you're introducing testosterone from the outside, and the brain is saying, well, there's plenty of test. I don't need to make any more testosterone. So it tells the testicles, like, for now, they just put everything on hold. We don't need any. We've got enough. What happens is, if there's no signal that's being sent, and the testicles are just waiting and waiting and waiting for some kind of signal to say, hey, go into production and start making some. After a while, it's kind of like they lay off their staff. It's like, look, there's no work. We're just sitting here not doing anything. They get rid of all the employees, right? So they shut down. Eventually, they'll shut down. They stop making testosterone. They can shrink a little bit. For some people more than others. Some people barely happens at all. In my case, it was like a little bit. And frankly, it was a little bit uncomfortable during that time that happened, but it lasted a couple of days. It wasn't in the world. So they will shrink down. And now the body is relying completely on testosterone from the outside, right? So if you were to stop TRT cold turkey, it's going to take some time for that signal to tell the testicles, hey, you need to start getting back into gear and producing. So because the testicles are shut down during that time, they're also making a lot less sperm. Some people believe that when you're taking exogenous testosterone, that you're basically infertile. And that's the furthest case from. I know a lot of guys that have been on cycles, like 600-700 milligrams a week of testosterone, and sure enough, they get their wives or girlfriends pregnant, and they thought that, it would have been impossible, but they still do. So just because you're taking testosterone, that doesn't mean right off the bat that you're infertile, okay? You know what they call guys that are on TRT and have unprotected sex? They call them fathers very often. So you got to be careful about that. You got to keep in mind that, it only takes one. So you can be like very, very deficient in sperm, have a very low sperm count, but it really only just takes one. If you are really concerned about sperm count, or let's say you go get your sperm count measured and you're severely deficient, and you are planning on having kids, like you're planning on starting to have kids now, you can take something called HCG. It's called human chorionic gonadotropin. I'm sorry if I'm not pronouncing that properly. That is taken from the urine of pregnant women, believe it or not. And when you inject that substance, it basically sends the signal to your testicles to say, ignore everything that's going on, produce. So forget that you see that there's too much testosterone or whatever else, just produce like you normally would. So they kind of come back to life and they'll start producing sperm again. Sperm count could typically go up pretty fast by taking that. Typical starting dose for HCG is 500 IU, 2 to 3 times weekly. In my case, I was on TRT for 3 years, got remarried in 2017. My wife wanted to have one. And just to kind of play it safe, I said, I'm going to get on HCG. I got on it. I don't even know if I really needed it or not, but I got on it regardless. I took 500 IU twice a week, and we got it done. I got an 8-month-old baby that can just kind of prove it. The second she was pregnant, I got off. I did not feel good on HCG whatsoever. It was like the worst substance I've probably ever put in my body. There are some guys out there that claim that they feel better on it. Like, hey, you feel better on it, more power to you. I find that it will spike estrogen more than it needs to be. When I say that, a lot of you guys will say, well, you know, we always say that estrogen is good. Estrogen is fantastic for you, just as much as testosterone is fantastic for you, but they stay in a ratio. So as you're raising testosterone, estrogen is going to kind of fall into balance with it, and it's going to find a kind of a healthy ratio. Now, what happens is when you take HCG, it can sometimes, or very oftentimes, spike estrogen in the body so that it goes up more than it would have been in that natural ratio. And then you're having issues because that ratio just isn't there anymore. I hate doing anything that will either lower estrogen or raise estrogen unnecessarily. I like to leave estrogen alone. I don't take DIM or calcium deglucarate or high dose zinc or any of that stuff. I focus on having good levels of free T and just let the body regulate estrogen on its own. More than 50% of the benefits of your body are coming from estrogen. I don't care what anyone else thinks. This has been researched to death. We've got so much literature that we've posted in the group. Anyone says otherwise, that you got to keep your range from 20 to 30, just slap them right now, okay? Because there is, and I will channel my best Greg Doucette impression here. It's zero evidence of high levels of estrogen causing any harm, okay? So don't worry about that. This is not something that you necessarily want to take year round unless you've tried it and you feel like you feel better on it. Some guys will feel better on HCG simply by the fact that it's raising your natural levels of testosterone, which you're now adding to your exogenous levels of testosterone, and you wind up with more testosterone. Sometimes what guys will do is they'll get rid of HCG and they'll just give themselves a higher dose from their TRT and they feel just as good, okay? I would much rather do more with less drugs. If I could take just testosterone instead of taking 5 different things, I'd rather do that. So let's say, I'll give you an example. You're a guy, you're on TRT right now, or you're about to start TRT, and you say, hey, in 5 years from now, I know I'm gonna wanna have kids. No, you don't need HCG right now. Don't worry about your testicles shutting down. It's a non-issue. Wait 5 years. And when you say, hey, this coming summer, we want to start trying, maybe around March, you can say, okay, I'm going to get on some HCG now, or even April, and start off with 500 IU, 2 to 3 times a week. Your testicles will wake up pretty damn fast. You get the job done. And when it's done, you can stop taking the HCG. Okay. You don't have to say, I need to take it now because I need to maintain my testicular size and blah, 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 blah. There's doctors online, and there's one in particular that I'm going to be doing a wonderful video on soon because he just drives me batty, and I'm sure you guys know who he is. He calls us the low testicle or the small testicle group. Here's the thing, guys. The size of your nuts is meaningless, okay? If you pride yourself in the size of your nuts, man, I feel bad for you, okay? I don't care about the size of my nuts. My nuts could be that big right now, and it wouldn't make the least bit of difference because everything else works really, really well. Okay, it's a non-issue. Just to say I want to take HCG to preserve testicular size. Why? You're going to take this stuff, complicate your protocol, throw off your ratio of estradiol in most cases. It's just pointless. Okay, the size of your nuts. No woman on the planet is like, oh, I married this guy because he's got these great big balls. They don't care. They want to make sure that the rest of the equipment, you know what I'm talking about, that works. Okay, as long as that works, the testicles are irrelevant. So stop worrying about the size of your balls. And anyone that tells you otherwise, that you need this stuff to keep them healthy or whatever, no. I have not taken HCG for a while now. I didn't take it for the 3 years. And I'm going on probably 4.5 years now on TRT, and I took HCG for a couple months. They shrunk like 20%, maybe. It has not changed my life like at all. It's a non-concern. It's not something you guys need to worry about. And most of you guys worry about stuff for nothing. You worry about everything. It drives me nuts. So just say to yourself, hey, if I'm going to get to the point that I'm going to start having kids, and I really want to play it safe and I don't want it to take too long, I can ask my doctor for some HCG. I'll start taking some now. Within about 2 months' time, your testosterone, your sperm count is going to be elevated, and you can probably get the job done. And when you get the job done, stop. If you say, hey, I feel great on this HCG, I actually feel better than I did before, either you're getting benefits from the HCG that I know a lot of guys don't get, or it could be just the fact that you've raised your testosterone levels from the HCG and you feel better. Maybe what you can try doing is get off the HCG and raise your dose of testosterone to compensate and see if you feel just as good. So don't worry about fertility. I'm yet to meet or speak to a single person that told me, hey, I've been on TRT for 15 years, and then I went to have a kid and I was on HCG and we tried and my sperm count was too low and I just couldn't get it done. I haven't seen that. I haven't seen one. Is there maybe one out there? Perhaps. It's very, very rare. By the way, if you are on HCG and you go get your sperm count checked and now they say you've got decent levels of sperm and you're not getting it done, it might not be you. It could be your wife or girlfriend. In my case, when, initially, it was taking a little bit long for us. Initially, we thought that because I was on TRT, it was going to be me. And plus, I'm old, right? I'm going to be 46 in February. So we thought my sperm was old, right? So we went to get the sperm count checked on HCG, and I had decent levels of sperm. And they're like, well, it's not you. Good motility, good everything else. Had a hormone panel done on my wife, and it turned out she was deficient in progesterone. And if a woman is deficient in progesterone, it'll make it very difficult for them to conceive. Especially with these women, will get this, a lot of times are women that were on birth control for a long time. It will completely mess up your hormone panel. She was on birth control for a long time until she figured out that it's like the worst thing she could possibly put in her body. She started taking progesterone, and literally within a month she was pregnant, and that was it. So, don't worry about yourself as much. Have your wife or girlfriend checked as well. Make sure that her hormonal profile is good. In my case, my wife was prescribed something called Prometrium, which is a little ball, if you will. It's applied intravaginally. You can also take them orally, but intravaginally it's applied, and you absorb the progesterone that way. It did wonders for her mood. It did wonders for her PMS. It did wonders for across the board. So again, I want you guys to not be afraid of starting TRT just because you think it's going to affect fertility. Get on TRT, get yourself feeling better. By the way, you want to start having kids, guess what? You're going to have sex a lot, okay? A lot. And if your testosterone levels are low and your libido is low, you can have all the sperm in the world. If you're even having sex, you're not going to get it done, okay? So get the testosterone up there that you can actually have some libido. Don't block your estrogen, please, because estrogen is directly responsible for libidos along with free testosterone. And throw in some HCG when the time comes to have sperm. This way you'll be having plenty of sex, you'll have plenty of sperm, make sure your wife isn't deficient in progesterone, and you'll get the job done. And when you do, like I said, decide whether or not you feel better or not, and you go from there. So that's pretty much all I got to say on HCG. For those of you trying right now, best of luck. Having kids is, especially at my age, I think another one has been a hell of a ride. So that's
Okay.
it for me.
Thanks for sharing.